Hi, my name is Rachel Eaton, and here I am in a bedroom. And you wonder why I'm in the bedroom? Well, I'm going to tell you about a story called The Story of an Hour. And I call this the transformation of Louise Mallard, who is the protagonist in this story. This is an awesome story. It tells of a woman who transforms into her own individual self and takes on a new persona after she finds and learns the news of her presumed husband's death. It starts off as her sister, which is named Josephine, and her family friend, which is named Mr. Brentley, gets the news. Mr. Brentley actually gets the, Mr. Richards, excuse me, actually gets the news that her husband is dead. And what he tries to do is to make sure the news is accurate before he tells her, because in the opening line of the story, it starts off and says that Mrs. Mallard has an afflicted heart. Now, that is the author strategically put that there to signify that that was the plot of the story. As the story goes on, Mrs. Mallard hears the news, but not as other women would hear, with a paralyzed fear that she can't go on. Actually, she hears it as her way of escape from a marriage that she's been in feeling like she was enslaved. However, back in the 1800s, when Kate Chopin wrote this story, women did not have a voice in the society. It was more patriarchal, and for men, it was all about the men, and women didn't have a lot of opinions in that time. So this was a very important aspect of the story. You had to do the cultural context to realize the culture at the time. Now, as she hears this news, she does weep and cry, abandonedly so in her sister's arms. But that was just a duty that a wife does when she hears the death of her husband. However, she leaves and goes into the confines of her own room and begins her transformation. In the bedroom, where most of the time the bedroom is a place of privacy where a person can go and escape the realities of the outside world and truly open themselves up to themselves. I also believe this story is a spiritual sense, because when we're in turmoil as a Christian, we go into our closet, our private room, and we talk to God. And I think this story did not implicate God, but it had a lot of spirituality in it for me. Well, anyway, she goes into the room and she begins to look out the window, and she takes in the natural surroundings and the environment out there and begins to connect it to her emotional being. And as she does this, she starts thinking about the things that are to come. Now, it wasn't long before she was saying how long her life would be with Mr. Bentley, her husband, but she started thinking about how she wished her years would be longer now that she was not connected into that marriage. So she goes on and she sees this blue patch of sky in the midst of the clouds. And she starts hearing the sounds of the peddlers out doing singing and guitars playing. She hears all these sounds. And I remember when I was not free in some areas of my life, that I couldn't hear the birds, I couldn't hear the sounds, I couldn't appreciate the beauty because I felt so trapped in whatever I was going through. But when I came to my senses, I was able to realize how beautiful life was, even through the natural scenery. Where she looks out the window and she takes in the natural surroundings, and she begins to connect it to her innermost being. And she starts whispering from her lips, "I'm free, I'm free, I'm free." She exclaims that so powerfully because she realizes she does not have to live for anyone but herself. And I don't think that marriage is on a top priority on her list after the death of her presumed husband. However, she takes in all of this and she begins fantasizing and all the things that is coming for her life. Well, she drinks in the elixir, and I like that analogy because when I was growing up, my grandmother would give us castor oil, and it didn't taste good going in, but it was a purging that cleansed me and kept me from getting ill. So she drank in the elixir of life, took in all the bitterness and everything, and realized that she was totally free. So she gets up from her sister knocks on the door, Josephine, to tell her to stop making herself sick. But what she didn't realize, her sister wasn't sick. She was excited about her new life. She gets up from where she's at and descends down the stairs with her sister. Now here's where the plot thickens. She's so excited about her newfound freedom and her ability to have found who she really is in her transformation, that someone sticks a key in the door. Well, who else has a key but the husband, right? Husband comes through the door, and Mr. Richards, the family friend, tries to block her from seeing this. I guess he knew that her weak heart couldn't take it, right? So he tries to block her, but when she sees him, she screams. And in that moment, she actually dies. Now, here's my take on it. Most people say she dies because she was happy to see him, but that's not what I think. I think when she realized her freedom was no more, and that her life that she had vision was not going to be, that was too much for her heart, and she would rather have died in her freedom than to have to give it up again and not live a life that is about him but was all about her. So she did pay a costly price for her freedom, which was her death, which this story signifies. She was not a victim. She was actually a heroine. She was actually able to rise above her circumstances, even in her death. I love this story, and if you get a chance to read it and read it with clarity, because it has so much powerful things in there that you can learn from, that I learned also for me that my voice does matter, and that I'm living in a time where, as a woman, that she wasn't able to live life, and I don't take that for granted. And I do thank God that I'm in a marriage, that I'm able to voice my opinion, and that I cannot imagine how my life would be without my husband. I don't think that the transformation that Louise experienced would be something that I could relate to, but I could relate to the power of being free from something that held her in bondage, as that marriage did. Thank you.